Do you have any idea why February 3rd, 1959 is known as the day the music died? It's because on that day the world lost three rock and roll icons: Ritchie Valens, Buddy Holly, and J.P. the Big Bopper Richardson, all of whom died in a tragic plane crash. Richard Stephen Valenzuela, better known as Ritchie Valens, was a trendsetter, the founder of Chicano Rock, and the voice behind the unforgettable hit La Bamba. We're delving into the terrifying last minutes of Ritchie Valens today. But before that, be sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. On February 3rd, the world woke up to tragic news that shook the music world to its core. Ritchie Valens died at the tender age of 17, just 8 months after his breakthrough. His promising career was nipped in the bud before it had a chance to fully blossom. Let's dive into the early life of Ritchie Valens. Ritchie was born on May 13, 1941, in Pacoima, a suburb in the San Fernando Valley area of Los Angeles. His father encouraged him to learn the trumpet and guitar at a very young age. He grew up listening to R&B, flamenco guitar, and Mexican mariachi music. He became a proficient guitarist and self-taught drummer at the age of 15. This time, he went through a life-changing event that would haunt him forever. What was that event, and how deeply did it impact Ritchie Valens? How long did it take him to overcome its effects? Ritchie was a student at Pima Junior High School when a devastating incident struck the San Fernando Valley on January 31, 1957. A Douglas DC-7B transport plane and a Northrop F-89 Scorpion jet trainer collided, dumping debris into the school's playground. After this incident, he developed a crippling phobia of flying and had recurring nightmares. Later, as his music career took off, Ritchie had to confront his fears head-on. Ritchie's exceptional skills prompted the Silhouettes, a local band, to request him as their guitarist. Ritchie stepped in and took charge after their lead singer died. He made his stage debut with the Silhouettes. Soon after, the entire San Fernando Valley was talking about his brilliance. The news quickly reached Bob Keane, owner of Delphi Records. Intrigued by the hype, he eagerly attended Ritchie's performance and was thoroughly impressed. He invited Ritchie for an audition at his Silver Lake home without hesitation. On May 27, 1958, Delphi signed Ritchie after just one session. Ritchie recorded and released Come On, Let's Go and Framed in a matter of days, and both of them became hits. Inspired by his achievements, Ritchie and Delphi created a double-A side record, Donna and La Bamba, which shot Ritchie Valens to stardom. The album sold over 1 million copies, and the Recording Industry Association of America awarded Ritchie a gold disc, a highly sought-after honor. His career took off with Bob Keane's support. He booked a lot of shows and venues all across the country. His talent and fame continued to soar, and this teen idol with a golden voice landed a guest appearance on the iconic The Dick Clark Show. Soon after, Ritchie joined the famous Winter Dance Party Tour. Starting on January 23, 1959, he toured alongside music legends like Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, Dion and the Belmonts, and Frankie Sardo. They captivated crowds in American cities. However, there was a serious problem. The extreme cold made the Winter Dance Party Tour infamous as the road trip from hell. They were jammed into old buses, 4 of which had repeated breakdowns in the bitter cold. At one point, Buddy Holly's drummer, Carl Bunch, suffered serious frostbite due to the extreme cold and had to be hospitalized. The demanding tour eventually wore out the young musicians as they fought the difficult traveling conditions. On February 2nd, Buddy Holly took an aircraft from Mason City, Iowa to Fargo, North Dakota. They had just finished a gig at the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa, and their next show was set for Moorhead, Minnesota, which was near Fargo. Holly would finally be able to sleep through the night after the tour started, thanks to this flight. They called Dwyer Flying Service and made a reservation for a 1947 Beechcraft 35 Bonanza, seating 3 people, from Mason City. Ritchie was sick of the bitter cold and the broken-down buses, so he bravely conquered his fear of flying. 3 stars, Buddy Holly, Big Bopper, and Ritchie were driven down to Mason City and arrived at the municipal airport at 12:40 a.m. CST. What was the pilot's flying background? Was his lack of expertise a major factor in the unfortunate incident? They met Roger Arthur Peterson, their assigned pilot. Pilot Roger A. Peterson was 21 years old at the time of the flight. In April 1958, he earned his commercial pilot's license with a single-engine land aircraft rating. He had flown 711 hours by then, 128 of which were in the Beechcraft 35 Bonanza. He had spent a year as an employee of Dwyer Flying Service. He passed the written exam but failed the instrument flight test. He did not have an instrument rating, despite having had 52 hours of instrument flight training. The pilot and the 3 passengers boarded the aircraft and took off at 12:55 a.m. CST, 15 minutes after they met. Roger Peterson had received multiple weather briefings from the Air Traffic Communication Service prior to the flight. However, these briefings were insufficient and did not warn him of the worsening weather, which included an approaching snowfall with strong winds. Peterson radioed ATCS for the most recent information as he got ready to take off. They reported that the ceiling was 3,000 feet and that visibility was just 6 miles. These conditions were deemed safe for flight, but they were unaware of the impending storm. The aircraft took off, rose to about 800 feet, and then headed northwest. ATCS reached out to stay in touch but got no answer. At dawn, ATCS launched a search in an attempt to find the Beechcraft 35 Bonanza as worries grew. Sadly, they were able to locate the wreckage about 5 miles northwest of the airfield at 9:35 a.m., which confirmed the deaths of all 4 occupants. The aircraft was completely blanketed in snow by the time rescuers arrived. The pilot was found in the cockpit, and the other 3 passengers had been thrown from the wreckage. The Civil Aeronautics Board investigated the crash. There were no structural or engine failures discovered on the aircraft. They believed that the pilot approached an area that was pitch black when it crashed. The plane was equipped correctly for instrumental flight, but Peterson misinterpreted the pitch altitude. This was due to his unfamiliarity with the particular type of pitch indicator on board. Pitch altitude indicators in the Beechcraft 35 Bonanza were not the same as those used in the instrument flight training that Peterson had received. Peterson found himself relying on the altitude indication in complete darkness, which caused him further confusion. His disorientation caused him to lose control of the Bonanza, and instead of going up, he brought the aircraft down. With a right bank and a nose-low position, the aircraft crashed steeply. 3 passengers were ejected from the airplane as a result of the right wing breaking off upon impact. A 540-foot radius around the crash site was covered in debris. Investigation revealed that the tachometer displayed 2,200 revolutions per minute, the ascending rate gauge showed a drop rate of 3,000 feet per minute, and the airspeed indicator's needle was stuck between 165 and 170 knots. All 3 passengers, including the youngest, Richie, perished from blunt chest trauma and fatal head injuries. The once vibrant music scene was burned to ashes on March 3, 1959, which became known as the day the music died. Buddy Holly and J.P. Richardson were buried in Texas, while Richie was buried in California. Richie's remains were laid in Mission Hills, California's San Fernando Mission Cemetery. When Richie's mother passed away in 1987, 28 years after the plane tragedy, she was buried next to her loving son. There are musical notations for La Bamba and Come On, Let's Go on their tombstone. Columbia Pictures released La Bamba, a 1987 biographical drama based on the life and short but significant career of Ritchie Valens. What could have been done differently to prevent the tragic plane crash? Let us know in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe for more gripping tales. Let's continue to honor and cherish his memory.